financial risk around the development process. The acceleration is not cutting corners with respect to the assessment of safety and effectiveness. The American people can rely upon the fact that FDA has many experts in the vaccine area. We've been doing this for years, and we will rely upon the science and data when it's available to us to make that adjudication and decision regarding an EUA. I cannot prejudge when that will happen.
Thank you, Fred. Next, we have the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Eshoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to start with Dr. Redfield. Doctor, we had a conversation on the weekend, and I expressed to you really my dismay, my disappointment about you as CDC director, the most prestigious institution in the world on infectious diseases and prevention. The United States today is number one in the world in infections and in deaths. This is not anything that any of us can be proud of. The American people are in pain, they're grieving, there's a great deal of sorrow in communities, there's confusion because for many reasons. And I urged you, as head of CDC, to speak directly to the American people. I know the agencies are talking to each other. I consider that a whisper because the American people are not hearing you speak out. They deserve to hear the truth. We have heard Dr. Fauci time and time again putting out trusted information to the American people. The American people are divided on this issue of the virus. Imagine that. So I continue to urge you to speak out. You're a doctor. Put your white jacket on and speak weekly to the American people. They want to know what's coming, what is ahead. My constituents ask me on a consistent basis, what's next? What is our government doing? That's a haunting question. And so while we're doing the nice back and forth this morning, good questions on the part of members, I really remain dismayed and deeply disappointed. We need leadership coming out of the CDC. Real leadership. It was an outrage that there was a gathering in Tulsa. 6 of the president's advance people were infected. And it's my understanding the 2 Secret Service agents were. How can the CDC allow this pandemic, this virus, to be something political? You have to push back. You're a scientist, you're a doctor. Now to Dr. Hahn, I'm sure you've read the several articles regarding hydroxychloroquine. Every study states it doesn't work in any setting. In fact, it has known side effects, cardiac issues being one. So there's a danger in terms of the side effects. As commissioner, you see all the data. Are you going to inform the American people, doctors across the country, about these facts?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that question. And indeed, we are. I can refer the committee to several documents that we have put out over the last several weeks regarding hydroxychloroquine. With respect to the issues, we issued a safety alert, particularly around the combination of hydroxychloroquine with other drugs that might affect the heart. And as you know, we've taken recent action regarding the EUA.
Have you specifically spoken directly to the American people so there isn't this confusion about hydroxychloroquine?
Yes, ma'am. There is an FDA Voices piece that's authored by me, as well as a piece that's directly to the American people about the status of hydroxychloroquine.
That's on paper. I want to know if you have spoken out verbally to the American people, to doctors across the country. I don't, people don't hear paper, with all due respect.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate the question, but every opportunity I've had to be in the media, I've been asked that question, and I have communicated that same information about the current status.
I have another question, Dr. Hahn. There have been several disturbing articles expressing concerns relative to political pressure being placed on the FDA by the White House. Will you state unequivocally that if any political pressure is applied to you and the FDA, that you will immediately report that to this committee?
I will certainly unequivocally state that if I receive political pressure, I will report this committee. I can tell you that I have not felt political pressure, nor has the FDA, to make any decision in any specific direction.
Thank you.
Well, it's not about feelings. It's about a direct political pressure. So thank you for your response, and we'll back.
Thank you, Ms. Eshoo. Next is Mr. Latta from Ohio.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to our witnesses and all the hard work that you've been doing over the last several months for not only the United States, but for individuals from around the world. Greatly appreciate it. Dr. Fauci, if I could start my questions with you. And I know that our leader, Mr. Walden, had brought some of this up. Would you further explain how an infected individual develops antibodies and how long those antibodies remain effective in fighting off the virus? And are you seeing different levels of antibodies in people who have been infected, and what that means in terms of immunity?
Thank you very much for that question, Congressman Latta. So we need to start off by saying that we want to assume you're dealing with an antibody test that's been validated by the FDA or by the NIH. That's important because a lot of the confusion out there are tests that are not validated. But let's assume you have a good test. Whenever the body gets confronted with a virus and recovers, even when they don't recover, the body is stimulated to make antibodies. In general, for viruses that we have a lot of experience with, those antibodies serve to protect you against exposure and infection after you're exposed to the same virus. So that's what we call immunological memory, and these proteins block the virus. The one thing we do not know yet with COVID-19 is the relationship between the type of antibody, because the best antibody is called neutralizing antibody. Namely, if this were the virus, and this is where the virus binds to the cell, the neutralizing antibody blocks the virus from binding to the cell. There are antibodies against other parts of the virus that are called binding antibodies. They don't mean much. So you got to make sure you get the right antibody. The second thing is, what we still don't know is what the relationship between the titer of the antibody is, namely the level of the antibody and the degree of protection. The third thing we don't know is how long or what the duration of that antibody is going to be. We're going to find these things out as we study these individuals over months and a year or more. But remember, we're only a few months into this. So A, we know they make antibody. B, it's likely that they're protected for some period of time, but we don't know how long that's going to be. So the question I always get asked, which is a subtext, does that mean if you're exposed and you have antibody that you're protected? Likely you are, but we don't know how long you are protected.
All right, well, thank you. Dr. Redfield, excuse me, when a vaccine or treatment is developed, how will it be distributed to Americans?
Thank you for the question. It's a critical issue that is currently under discussion within the team to look at what the appropriate prioritization for distribution is. I want to just comment that it may be very dependent on what the product is. Each of these vaccine products that are currently being developed may in fact have differential utilization for different populations. So there is serious consideration to try to develop those prioritizations, and it's going to be important to develop them dependent on the product that they're going to be applied to.
Thank you. Dr. Hahn, and thanks very much for all your work, and thanks for taking my calls, especially on Friday nights and on Saturdays. I appreciate it. The FDA provided an emergency use authorization for remdesivir. Do you expect or envision the FDA to issue any more EUAs for potential treatments in the fall?
Congressman, for potential therapies, is that what you asked, sir?
Right.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So we are working very closely with sponsors regarding the development of therapeutics, including with Operation Warp Speed. 131 clinical trials ongoing right now. I anticipate that we will receive data regarding several therapies in the future, plasma being one of them, what we just discussed with Congressman Walden, potentially also with some anti-inflammatory agents, as well as for monoclonal antibodies. Those are being accelerated through the pipeline, and our potential therapeutics, as well as